Let me talk to social media, which was our first piece. I think people are more angry now because it's more visible. But this shit has been happening for hundreds of years. On and on and on in many neighborhoods that's not been visible. But what I love now, and I have to give credit to millennials 1,000%, is that you fuckers were able to mobilize within days across multiple states and have many types of rallies against that we never had that communication ability. Like when we had to drive or call on the phone, or even think about Martin Luther King Day, it took months for them to organize one huge rally. You guys were able to do that in days. Like, so when I asked about, is it important for your social media platforms to be the means in which you affect change, that's what I mean. You did that shit, right? Before, when we were talking, remember our earlier conversations, Mikhail, right? And I was like, we like to have it for fun and entertainment too, but God damn it, as soon as you guys got pissed off, right, you went and fucking did that shit, and I'm thinking like, look, talk to me, brother.
Thank you. Go ahead. I just want to give Mikhail an opportunity to speak.
Yes. So just to kind of like address some of the stuff that, each one of you guys have brought up, right? And I agree, like in terms, I felt like the one thing that you've all kind of like, brought up is the need to actually have like a collective agenda, like a Black agenda, which is something that we've never had, even to this point right now, right? Like we don't know, like we're not demanding anything, right? We're not demanding any specific like goals, or we don't have any specific outcomes that we're actually going for collectively. And that actually kind of like goes back to like even voting, right? Voting is, of course, like a right that we, everybody has, and we should all, take advantage of that right, because it actually came with a lot of cost. But when you're looking at the options that are actually like given, right? Specifically, like right now, this moment, the options that you have is Trump, which is, like a narcissistic, egomaniac, racist guy who's, just, anti just human rights, basically, not just, even anti-Black. If it's not for him, then he's against it, right? And on the flip side, you got someone who actually has been so much part of the system. And, I'm talking about Joe Biden, right? He is someone who actually is responsible for, thousands and thousands of Black people being incarcerated wrongfully for the same thing a white person would get away with, right? For instance, his own son, Joe Biden's son, right? By the time that the crime bill passed in '94, his son was actually a drug addict. But that bill was used to send so many people on just minor charges, like just holding marijuana, like just a small amount of like weed, right? So when you're looking at like the options that are given, right? And you're seeing how it doesn't really like address, of course, we've always been told about like the lesser of two evils, right? And we've been choosing the lesser of two evils. But I really feel like that's actually like what's really like at the heart of the problem, is because we're just choosing the lesser of two evils. We're not choosing someone who actually is about these things. We're not choosing someone who actually has passion about fighting for this causes. We're just choosing someone who is willing to just jump on the bandwagon when it's fitting, who's never stood up for those causes ever in his whole political career, right? So, like, I'm seeing that dilemma, like, a lot in terms of, like, how the millennial is, like, handling and processing this, right? Like, we want to be part of the solution, and we want to bring about change. But how do you... Exactly, real solution. But how do you participate in this system that is just so visibly corrupted and rigged in so many ways, If you really like pay attention to like how even the elections work, like there's just like so many loopholes and just so many ways that they actually like, tip it to their favors. And who like the people who actually are getting the power over and over are like establishment people, people who actually are standing for the establishment. not people who actually are standing for the working people, right?
Because we have no strategy, right? We wait until the end and we choose, right? Say if Biden's our only choice. And so I want to tell you something about the 1994 crime bill. When he passed it as a senator, right, it's not how he should take the slack. He voted for that shit. But how laws are enacted matters.
For it more than voted.
Like in our state, Kamala Harris, the black lady running,
exactly,
is getting her shit because of how she enforced those laws. So each state independently enforces the federal laws. Now, the federal government may pass a law, and maybe it's an idealistic good crime bill, but then the outcome of it, we see disproportionately it affected how the states, that to me, is institutionalized racism. This is because the states already inherently in the people that are going to execute the policy are going to go to the black neighborhoods and do that. So no matter what bills are passed, so I don't want to give Biden a pass because I think cognitively he has issues.
But that's recent though. He didn't have cognitive issues in
No, I'm saying now. Right? I'm saying now as a current choice, right? As a bad current choice. Out of him and Trump as a bad current choice. But hear me out, right? Bad current choice, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just him. So when I'm not trying to say when you get lemons make lemonade, but he's a one-term president. He's 77 years old. He's not going to make it past another term. Let him surround himself with people that we put in place that can help be able to establish policy. It's not only the president, right? It's his cabinet and the people in the other places who run the other offices that when he gets a woman in president, woman vice president, who that is, I think that's going to have an influx of empathy somewhere in the system where white males aren't giving any kind of empathetic piece to how laws are enacted. Say that piece. So he surrounds himself with people that are good. Yes, he's our only one now. There's nothing you can do about that right now. So what do you do when you're at a point where you have two work? Do you just shut down, you don't do anything, or you decide to take what you have and make the best out of it? Talk to me.
Well, I agree. So that's a good point, right? And that's actually the reason that I brought it up is because first of all, we have to be well informed on everybody, right? So we can hold them accountable so that they don't repeat the same cycle, so that they don't perpetuate the same system over and over again, right? And after that, that's actually why I agreed with you guys about, the need to actually come up with a demand, right? We can, if there's a collective, demand as Black people together, right? That we have, and if that's presented, then we can actually see who is. It might be just a lip service initially, and that's what I feel it's gonna be. Even I don't they would have to be pushed on both sides,
of course,
regardless of who it is, right? And that's it goes to what you were talking about in terms of the need to actually have so many roles filled with people that actually represent this fight, right? But another issue that comes with that is right, there are Black people, there are Black senators who actually have repeatedly voted against the interests of Black people, right? Kamala Harris, for instance, that's Exhibit A, and that has that's the majority of actually politicians. They get into the system, and it's such a seductive system, right? That they, in order to navigate those spaces and in order to get the monies that they need from the lobbyists and all that stuff, they change. I can say that about Barack Obama. What he really fought for, he really fought for the establishment more than he did for working people in so many ways. So many So what I'm saying is I agree. I just want to address what you. One of the things that you you made a point for Pharaoh earlier, and in terms of the need for as many of us to flood the gates of politics, right? Mm-hmm. And to change the system from within, right? But I'm really the more I think about it, I'm feeling this shit goes even deeper than the fucking system. It goes even deeper than the rules that are put on the books, right?
Okay, to where? To where?
Yeah. Huh?
Deeper to where?
Deeper to the people who actually hold these views. right?
Yeah, but it's individuals.
Yes.
There's no way you're going to change a person's heart, right?
That's
what
I'm saying.
Force a person's heart to change, right?
Let me finish my
so
point.
Until that motherfucker gets it together, let him get out and do it over there. Work for your shit over there, outside of politics, right?
Can I say something?
You don't want to fuck with you. You know what I mean? Vote his ass out.
But that's what I'm saying. You can do that, and of course, but at the same time, you actually have to come to the realization that, like you said, like, you know, the black population, well, African American population is what, like 15%, right? But I don't think they account for, like, you know, the diaspora Africans in that percentage. So I feel like we might actually even be more than that. But like in terms of just like representation, right? Like there's always gonna be like, we can't catch up in terms just statistically, just a numbers game, right? You can't have it to where it's gonna be like a predominantly black like Congress.
You don't need that though. But you should try to catch up with, not population-wise, right? We got a whole continent for that, right? I'm saying the ones that are here, you need to equalize the playing field out. I don't give a shit about the population change, right? But currently, 400 years of inbred social racism injustice is going to take us some time collectively to take a steady, consistent effort. You asked in the question, what can you not repeat as a mistake in the past?
Well, I mean, with the electoral
that's what I'm
you don't necessarily have to have those numbers, right? The system is designed in such a way that, you know, there's an elect representative for each, you know, state. So, like, even if our population is less, because of the electoral college, like, you know, we don't necessarily have to have those numbers. Because of
I would just say in terms of just like the general pool, they can actually,
right.
It's natural that they would have more people who, you know, would be in any field, not just like in politics.
That's why most of the countries in the world.
It is, but get smart, get the Latinos, get the Asians.
This is my question, though, right?
Organized, right?
If it was just a matter of
point that you need to have and formulate allies, and you need to have them of every stripe and every color.
Exactly.
I did want to say something to the millennials, especially since we have so many artistic brothers, and I'm going to disagree with Van and my own tribe for a second there. I think the movement needs a soundtrack. I think the movement needs...
Exactly. That's the point I was making.
Yeah, at the time that we came up, you had Public Enemy. You had, you know, Paris, the architect. You had X-Clan. You had a lot of brothers that were talking positivity. If you look at the 70s with, you know, or 60s and with James Brown, Black and I'm Proud. You look at, you know, Muhammad Ali and all these other artists or entertainers, they were all in step with what we needed as a community, and they felt like they had a community. You know, I'm going to step out way out of bounds, but we were talking about this, but I have a harder time respecting all these gangsters that are destroying, you know, our community.
Absolutely.
And that is the hottest selling shit in music right now. Is how much dope do you push? How many, you know, women do you pimp? How many? So when you're talking about stay woke, it's not only that you have to get woke, but you got to stay woke, right? And you have to keep on referring to each other as kings and queens. And, you know, I see a lot of stuff, you know, I'm part of different types of podcasts and websites. And, you know, some sites are, you know, jilted guys who've been wronged by one woman and they hate every woman, right? And
bro, stay off those sites, bro. Stay off those sites.
Yeah, you know,
stay off those sites, bro.
They garbage in, garbage out. But the thing is, though, you know, there's even in a lie, there's a bit of truth, right? So, but you still want to stay positive, and we want to have as many allies. Slavery wasn't stopped just by Black people, but you had abolitionists. So not only was Frederick Douglass speaking, but you'd have, you know, people that would write in a newspaper that was, you know, or John Brown, who was trying to, you know, start a revolution, you know, going to the armory. That dude was down, but he also felt that the nation had sinned with slavery, and it had to make up for it. It had to make atonement. So as we did as Black people or brothers under Mr. Farrakhan and had 1 million Black men march, that was an atonement for stuff that we're not doing. When you see people that aren't doing things that they should, you know, you see a dude smacking up a woman, stop that stuff. It can be dangerous. You know, when you see some people banging on, like this one brother, this isn't even mine, what this one brother was talking about. We had no-fly zones, and brothers had to check in when they would come to somebody else's hood. We don't know none of that. Where are those people, now that we riding in Hollywood or in Atlanta or whatever? There's no fly zone and no check-in because those dudes don't really own much. They think they do. And they have a lot of, it's terrorism against their own people.
All right. So, James, you want to say something, Scribe or Mikhail? You need to go to the next question, brother. But this is the juice we need right here. Go ahead, jump in. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to kind of add on that in terms of what Tayari was saying. Like, I agree. That's the point that I was trying to make, right? Like, this is like an issue that we have to attack from like all sides. Like, of course, we have to put a lot of focus on the political side, right? But this like is a cultural like shift needs to happen, right? And like, you've been seeing like a lot of like white people speaking up, right? That needs to be more encouraged. We need like more allies. And in order to do that, you need the arts and you need people from like all walks of life and all kinds of like, careers to be able to like, do that, the space that there, right? It's not about like changing careers. Everybody can contribute from where they are.
Exactly. That's a good segue.
Don't defend the artist mission. I'm saying that we don't organize to push people in that direction. There are people who collectively are out there seeking these political positions. I mean, if you want to support in the arts, I'm not trying to say change yours, right? We need that creative piece of it. But we also really need, you can't so complain about institutionalized racism if you chose that field and are not trying to either change your course or push someone in that direction. You have a duality to that. I'm not saying diminish your own independence, but I'm saying what responsibility do you have if you complain about the shit being institutionalized to either support, push, or become that change yourself?
Well, they are the change. It's just a matter of time before the manifestation happens. We got two gentlemen on the phone, both say that they want to be actors, thespians, whatever you want to call it. Now, to me, once you hit that kind of career, you have a platform to influence so many people. My leader, who I follow, said that the destiny of one person could change the planet or change the country or change the destiny of the world. At the end of the day, you still have to be responsible. You still have to do what you have to do, but you cannot make changes sitting on the bench. You cannot have it both ways.
Thank you, my brothers. Awesome political conversation. So let me. You can address it in the next one, right? I'm gonna ask you my question if you want to open up with your final thoughts on that last point, and then answer my question. Then Terrell, please go ahead, my brother. So let me
my time.
Okay. So listen. I got a text from the Scribe saying keep it moving. I'm talking about the things where I get in trouble, right? All right. So Terrell, I want you to answer this question, brother, and I want you to pick up where we left off, right, to be able to answer your piece. So this is to the millennials: to vote, to being counted as a whole person, and to having basic civil liberties or rights our ancestors have fought and died for in this country. A key fundamental component to our oppression as a culture is the control and power to pass laws that dictate how our country functions. Why do you, as millennial men of African descent, believe there is no collective agenda being championed politically across our country that will begin to equalize our opportunity and enforce rights nationwide? And I'll read it again. To vote, to being counted as a whole person, and to having basic civil liberties or rights our ancestors have fought and died for in this country. A key fundamental component to our oppression as a culture is the control and power to pass laws that dictate how our country functions. Why do you, as millennial men of African descent, believe there is no collective Black agenda being championed politically across the entire country that will equalize our opportunity and enforce rights? Go ahead, Terrell. If you want to pick up on that last piece and then answer that.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up where we left off, then I'm going to go into your question. So basically, we were talking about the artists and taking responsibility for the information that we put out there with the platform, and also being influencers with whatever we do with the craft. One thing that I will say is that with the gangster shit and the things that are toxic within the Black community that are being pushed, keyword being pushed, is being pushed by white supremacy. There are a great number of artists who are about being woke and being Black progressive. They're not given the same push and platform as these other artists that are strategically being put in the limelight to continue to batter Black people and what we look like and what we represent. So we're doing the work. I promise you, I'm about it. I'm doing the work. And I have to do the extra work because I'm going against these people who have a way easier because they're being pushed because they represent the toxicity which only is allowed to go on mainstream. So we are doing the work. Speaking for myself, I'm about it and I'm doing the work, and I truly agree. I just wanted to point that out.
Congratulations,
to answer your question,
congratulations.
Vanessa, I appreciate that. And to answer your question, Vanessa, Pharaoh, I believe your question was about. Can you repeat the last part of your question in regards to?
This is the key part of it, right? As inheritors of the planet, a key fundamental component to our oppression as a culture is the control and the power to pass laws that dictate how the country functions and runs. Why do you, as millennial men of African descent, believe there is no collective Black agenda being championed politically across our country? Now, there are other platforms, but I'm saying a political Black agenda. Why is not one being championed across the country to equalize out the opportunity and rights? We all say we know it's institutionalized racism. So to me, I'm waiting for the collective agenda wherever Blacks are located at in the country for us to rally around that shit. Why do you believe as millennials that there's no collective agenda today? And then yeah.
Oh yeah, can I go for that? So I think, that's what Mikhail was kind of hinting at earlier. And I think even in our conversations, prior to this, is that I think a lot of us have lost hope in the system as it is, especially with millennials and our, I think inherent affection for technology, you know what I mean? Is that I think, and it might be misconstrued because we don't really understand the inner workings of it, but it seems like a lot of young people have lost faith in, the voting system and how much it can be influenced. And, we talk about, the collusion with Russia and all of that. We don't have all the facts, but we've seen over the years that, Facebook was taken to court and, for certain things because they were releasing people's, personal information and all those things. So I think a lot of people feel like at this point their vote, even if they do vote, doesn't really matter, so they've lost hope in that system. But I'm also for the idea that, like you were saying earlier, Pharaoh, that, essentially how we can change the system is by the system itself. You know what I mean? And I think the system was put in place in order to make sure that, no one person can just come in. That's the point about a democracy, is that no one person can just come in and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be president forever. You know what I mean? And so we need to, I think, reestablish the faith in the system and its validity in order for us as millennials to have that buy-in where we can be like, okay, cool. We believe fully that this system is the way to change the system in order for us to, maybe do away with the policing of people. And, people are talking more about how about we stop policing people and invest more into counselors and, making sure that people don't commit these petty crimes that people get killed for. So I think that's my whole piece on the thing, is that we've lost, I think as our generation has lost a lot of faith in the system, and that's why we haven't really bought into that idea.
I agree with that. I'd like to add on that. I agree with 100% what you said on Scribe. And what I would like to add on is not only have we as a collective started to lose faith in the system, but I believe as a collective, we are numb and we are still healing. And we are running around as a collective with chickens with their heads cut off. And with the healing that needs to be done, there's a lack of clarity. So we need to heal and we need to gain clarity as we liberate and we get empowered. Then we can get focus and focus this aggression, this anger, and this pain in the right ways towards the right people, towards the right systems. And since we're speaking about the systems, dismantling and taking down the system, and it's for the gain of white supremacy and the oppression of Black and African.
I second that. And yes, just some that I want to add to that, like, it's like the Scribe said, right? Like one of the biggest sort of like reasons that we don't even like participate in the political, process is because we just don't have any faith in it, right? So he said it really well, so there's no need for me to like reiterate that point. But I feel like that's a really good question, honestly, right? And the question is for like the Black community in America, right? And this is like what I really feel like is at the heart of the question. And this is, I feel like, what like the problem is, right? And James actually brought this up earlier, right? Like, what is it about us at this point in time that makes us feel like, the other person is an enemy, even when like we're both Black, right? Like, what is it? Why are we like dividing ourselves based on just like blocks and gangs and all that stuff, right? And I really exactly, Oshik's color, exactly,
the color,
exactly.
Dark skin Blacks, light skin Blacks,
all that,
like that, right? Shit, right?
And yes, so. Yeah, keep going.
Go ahead, brother. No, I want you to address this. I'm glad you. I want to ask you this on top of that. Then, so yes. I want you to talk to that because Scribe and I always have this argument about light-skinned Blacks and dark-skinned Blacks. Now, if it's institutionalized, I do believe the white man bringing us over has made us feel inferior about our color. And as they raped and pillaged us, a lot of us became a little lighter and they gave us more privilege. It caused this kind of distinction to think that if you're lighter skinned, you have more privilege or you're closer to white and you're better than that. Is that something that we as a Black race need to tackle too? I mean, because I think if we can't rally around the agenda, talk to me about it.
Absolutely.
I agree. Can I share an experience real quick? I agree. As you can see, my skin tone is very, very chocolatey. I'm the lightest man in my family on my father's side until the other generations were started being born. And I have a Haitian background. My cousins, first of all, my whole family is biracial. But that systemic attitude and thinking was in my family. I got my ass whipped as a kid for hitting my cousin after she spit on me. And she was much fairer skinned than I was. And as a kid, we didn't know what this stuff meant. But as an adult today, I'm able, I know what's going on. But my point being is that is a practice that has been going on for well over 400 years, to petty the Black or the light against the dark. And we bought into that because when you see somebody with hair like Terrell, I was taught, oh, that's good hair right there. That's good hair. And if your hair was knotted up, now I see people taking pride in that. They'll put some whatever they put in their hair and they'll wear it. When I was a kid, you would have got laughed out the classroom. They would have said, man, what you doing in here with all them cuckabuds in your head? I'm serious. We were very ignorant of who we were
No, look at the term he said. He said cuckabugs. You understand cuckabugs?
I never heard that.
We never even heard of that.
Don't let that shit. That's some country shit, right?
I told you I'm from Louisiana.
Tell the truth.
Just real quick, James, I don't want to cut you off, but Tahiti has been raising his hands for a minute now, so go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Tahiti.
No. It needs to be said. Back to Van's question about why is there not a black agenda? I think it's twofold. We're fighting a war on two fronts. This war that we're talking about amongst ourselves, to be woke as a collective, to get rid of this blatant consumerism, and that you are about what bag you got or what car you drive or what ice or jewelry you have, what color you are, whatever, right? To get away from that. But then, just as we know historically, and this is where we inject the history part, you had COINTELPRO. You had, mass incarceration. You had slavery by another name, where people were, if you had money in your pocket, then you stole it. If you didn't have any money in your pocket, then you were a vagrant or loitering, stuff like that. So these wars are fought on two different sides. So the problem is, I remember when we had World War I and World War II and all these brothers, and we could tie this into Drew Brees' comment about my grandfather fought for this flag. And we're like, dude, we fought for every war that's happened on this soil and across seas. The thing was, the society or the powers that be knew how heavy it was if you had a black man, at that time they couldn't have women in service, but a black man come back after being exposed to certain areas of respect in Europe, possibly, or whatever, and then come back and demand his rights and his full uniform, it would be a problem. And so they've kept us from having a black agenda. And number two, the black agenda that we typically has gets co-opted. So that might be a problem, because I see we have people from South Africa and stuff like that, but you have the Dreamers Bill. What does that have to do with black people? I get it. I want, people from all sorts to come here and to stay here if they're talented and they're going to give, but that's not the African-American agenda, right? You have people talking about, I'm with gay people, but you have gay rights agenda, and Barack Obama stood up fervently for that. Where's our agenda getting pushed? It gets pushed to the back. We somewhere around the Native Americans agenda. So we can't let people take our vote over and over and over again without an exchange for that vote. We have to hold, and just as you do with your finances, I know you talked about that or whatever, you got a 1-year plan, you got a 3-year plan, you got a 5-year plan. And shit, I look at my account every day, see which way it's changing, like it's the Dow Jones, right? What's been taken out, what's been put in, right? That's what we have to look at. Are our schools any better? Is there any funds that were around that we needed to get that we're not getting? Is this person, if it's mayor, whoever, are they listening to our requests, and are they instituting those requests? And are we getting a return on our investment? Because that vote is an investment. That's all. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't get to finish the point that I was.
No, please go ahead, brother.
Can I actually go for it?
Please,
so just to really answer your question in full, right? I really felt like that's actually what's really the problem is that we don't really view ourselves as having a collective agenda in the first place. We're not even unified. So how do you come up with a collective agenda where you're not even unified, right? And just to kind of take it even deeper, I feel like the issue with this is, right, it's white supremacy, right? And until we actually attack, like you said earlier, until we cut off the tree from its roots, right? And that actually goes to Africa. If we actually don't collectively come up with a plan to free Africa. Africa is the most exploited continent on the history of the world, still to this day. The coltan and all the minerals that actually make up our phone come from the Congo, right? And the Congo at the same time is the poorest country in the world, right? And that is systematically made that way. And unless we actually really peep that game, what's being actually played, right? And really see that we're being affected by the same poison in many different places and, from one continent to another. And unless we actually like come up with a way to just like empower ourselves collectively, then it's gonna be very easy for the system to just like break us from like, without even, trying
because
that much.
We would be divided. When you divide people,
Exactly.
They fall fast.
Exactly. And like, I feel like, this is actually like more, it's amazing that this whole like outcry, like, like started and people are asking for justice, rightfully so, right? Because it's just fucking horrendous what happened. But like, we have to address it even deeper than that. If we're just like satisfied with the officers who like murdered George Floyd being acquitted and just like sent to jail, then that's not really gonna solve the problem. Like the same cycle is gonna like keep going, right? And like we actually really have to look at like how
Absolutely,
being
man.
affected.
1,000%, brother.
Yeah,
1,000%, brother. That's exactly it. So that's why I was asking. I'm glad you guys agree with that, right? So I want to, before we move and Scribe, where are we at, brother? Do we need to move to the next topic?
I think we should take a little short break so everybody can recoup and move on to the next topic.
Okay, so let me close this out with this thought. I wanted to share, if we can, then we can jump back in like after 10 minutes or so. So I asked about the collective Black agenda for a reason, right? To see where your generation feels, how do we, if you don't have Public Enemy, you don't have all these other people that are your kind of current leaders. Can anyone just tell me a current Black conscious leader that the millennials look up to right now?
Shaun King.
Yeah.
Shaun King.
Yeah. Where does Shaun King
another one, Killer Mike, talking about artists.
Killer Mike, yeah. Because Shaun King, does he stay here? Shaun King, does he stay here?
He's based in New York.
Based in New York. Yeah. So Killer Mike, who else?
I would say Kendrick Lamar is pretty conscious in when it comes to leading.
Yeah, but he's not making a movement, right? A couple of his songs. I mean, who do you feel is out there? Like Coyote was saying, he made such a key point. We had key, central Black leaders that were out there always on the TV showing up. And I didn't connect with that until he said, I didn't connect that. I kind of took it for granted that was it, but he made such a very valid point. And I wanted to ask you guys, who do you look up to consciously that moves your movement? And don't say Beyonce. I know I got
Beyonce. The Queen.
Y'all out there in LA, what about Nipsey Hussle?
Yeah,
Nipsey
was in the forefront, but you know what happened to Nipsey, But I mean,
he was trying, bro.
I mean, he had a platform on multiple different things. Well, he was talking about financial solvency. He was talking about buying back the block.
Yeah, generational wealth, all of that.
And then he gave a speech about gangbanging. He's like, what it is? And this goes back to your point. He says, you don't get the nerd. When you on a mission, you don't get the nerd. You don't get the person that looks like they go on a job unless they look at. You get the dude who looks just like himself.
Exactly.
So you're actually going.
To your point, Pharaoh, it's, we don't have like that one solid leader. And
or two or three.
Right, but it's also like we live in a world where we have so many options now. You know what I mean? So everyone has an issue, or they'll find an issue with a particular person because we have this whole cancel culture. So like, and no one person is perfect. So and we're very critical. I think even more.
Yeah, you quick to cancel, motherfucker, bro.
Right. So it's very difficult for us to have,
quickness. One more thing, you call Gail a funky dog head bitch. I'm done. That's it. Listen, you're gonna apologize later on. I mean, my God, guys. I mean, you can't have it both ways, right? Right. Sorry, Scribe. Sorry.
But yeah. I mean, that's to my point. It's so hard to be, on the forefront and be Black nowadays because, not only is the whole world critical of you, but we're also very critical of ourselves,
Yes.
And so, things that, people understood that, certain leaders and people back then, they used to have like, I don't want to mention any names, but, people had affairs and they were doing other things in the background that never really, affected how we viewed them as, political figures or people that, we followed. But nowadays, it's like your personal life is like married with your public life. And so once that gets out, then it's like, oh, now you're canceled because you said this one thing 5 years ago and it's not politically correct, you know? So it's very difficult for us nowadays to like really rally behind like one particular person. So that's a valid point. We really don't have someone like that.
Absolutely. Can I add something to that, actually?
Please, yeah, close out with the last couple of thoughts, brother, if you please.
All right. Yeah. So, like, you know, that's a great point and insight as well. I agree. Like, there's a lack of, like, leadership in terms of, like, what the Black community goes for, right? Like, we don't have a Huey P. Newton or, like, anybody that actually stands at the center and addresses all the questions, right? And actually kind of, like, goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like, there are a lot of conscious and sort of quote unquote woke Black leaders, right? Young leaders. But the one thing that actually, you know, when I was just thinking of the names that was coming up to me was that, like, they don't even get along with one another. They don't get along with each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but there's Brother Polite, you know?
That's what I was talking about with the gang stuff. That was his diatribe.
Oh, yes, exactly. Hell yeah. Like that guy, for instance, right? Like that guy has a well of wisdom and he's someone who can actually teach a lot, you know, like to the community. But like, and you know, the thing is there's the Nation of Islam group, and then there's the Hebrew Israelites, and then there's the Kemetic like Egyptians, and then there's that. And you know, all of that is legit, right? Like even back in the days, there was the, you know, Nation of Islam with Malcolm X, and then there's the MLK, and they didn't see eye to eye in terms of like how they wanted to kind of like address the problems, right? But like at least they were in a space, they were like having conversations constantly. You know, they were like they were having a bunch of debates, you know? And I feel like ultimately like that's what we need, and that's what's lacking, is to provide like a platform for all these leaders who have like a lot of different, like, you know, platforms and, you know, a lot of different audiences to bring all of that together and to create like that agenda that everybody can agree on.
That's nice, brother.
Thank you.
I want to thank you guys. I mean, the political segment, I think, guys, were fucking amazing. The dialogue was really great. Let's take like a 10-minute break, right? Let's come back. And I think the idea is to finish up with climate control. I think it's really important to talk about our environment. Because past this point, then I think the earth is in trouble, right? And I think we're in trouble on the earth if we don't do something about them, irrespective of what color you are. So, brothers, thank you so much. I'll see you in 10. Just, you know, mute your screen, come back in 10 minutes, and we go jump back in, all right?
It was Freddie, Sam, Corey, Eric, Philando, Ahmad, Steven, Kenneth, Amadou, Jonathan, Christian, Terrace, Sean. Killed him a day before his wedding. Jamal killed him while he was in handcuffs. Mike killed him while he had his hands up. Kamani, Ramali, Phillip, Alton. About 3 Kevins, about 2 Jordans. John, Laquan, Bathon, Stephon, Tony, Tamir, Elijah, Antoine, Isel, Terrell, Dauntre, Akai, George. For him, set the country on fire. Timothy, Patrick, Paul, Tyree, Quintonio, Darius, Jeremy, William, Anthony, Dante, Oscar, Kendrick, Keith, David, Walter, women like Sandra, Betty, Rihanna, India, Michelle, Tatiana, Tanisha, Rika, Natasha, Pamela, Janet, Megan, baby Ayana. All that we lost, your name live on. Wasn't killed by a cop, but I can't forget Trayvon. Can't forget Emmett, and all of those we lost to the beast. No justice, no peace.